Hi, I'm Julieann Hartman, and welcome to The Journey. Today's show is with Connie Weiskopf. Now, Connie was raped and got pregnant through that rape and then had an abortion. And that was the first time that she'd ever done something like that, but unfortunately went on to have two more. I want you to hear this story because this is a story about Jesus' love, the redemption, to redeem her from all of the shame and the guilt and the condemnation. It's so beautiful, wonderful, and what a sweet lady she is. So I can't wait for you guys to meet her. She is awesome. This is part one of the Connie Weiskopf story. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Connie. We are not just me, but we all, as the viewers, are in for an amazing time to spend with you to hear about your story and what God has done in your life.
I so appreciate and am honored to be on today, Julieann. It's nice to be here.
Well, so let's get into this because we don't want to waste any time. So, Connie, where are you from?
I am from Colorado.
Okay.
I'm born and raised on the Front Range and moved to the western slope of Colorado for many years.
Wow, you make it sound so amazing. The Western Front. It sounds great. You're like a commercial for Colorado tourism. It's awesome.
Well, no, we don't want them.
You what?
We don't want any more. People are finding out how beautiful it is.
So true. So what was your life like growing up? Were you raised a Christian? Were you raised not a Christian? Like what was going on in your home?
I was raised in the church, but I never had a relationship with the Lord. So, it was just kind of our duty on Sundays. As a family, I have 5 brothers and sisters. And then I'm number 5 of that. And so we would go to church, and around 15, 16, decided that the church I grew up in, and my experience was that it looked like the world and didn't really want much to do with it.
Okay, so what was it like in your own home, in your family? Were you getting the word at home too?
My mom would read us the word at night when we would go to sleep, or when we were really little at nap time, she would read the word to us. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of, God, relationship with the Lord, even in our home, I don't think.
It is so crazy because I just hear this over and over and over. For me, we knew nothing. So I got saved 21 years ago and I'm 58. So do the math. I was not a Christian for a long time, but it's that relationship that is missing. And if you can't just get that on Sundays, it's got to be in the home where it's being, really, really not just taught, but demonstrated. So what was your life like? Were you, a straight A student? Were you a party girl? What was going on?
I was definitely not the straight A student. I wasn't a partier too much until my teens, of course. And then I kind of did do the party scene and drugs, alcohol, but just really wanted to get away, I think. And so I studied, enough to get into college and was happy to go away. So when I went to college, I kind of had already done the party thing, did the drugs, tried that. And so I was ready, I was paying for college. So I thought I better study and do this right. So I was probably the party pooper in college, more so than most of my friends.
So now what were you studying in college?
I have a BA in art, education, and business.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get my education degree probably until my last year in college, and I thought I was just going to sit by the river and paint, and somebody said, "You're going to starve to death." So I said, "Well, what do I do? You mean I can't just get out of college and start painting and selling my paintings?" And so I got an education degree, but that was not probably my gift at that time. And so I started a graphics business and to supplement my painting right after college.
That is awesome. So now what about relationships with men? What was going on? Did you have long-term relationships, or were you kind of the hop around dater?
No, I was the long-term relationship. I had the same boyfriend all through junior high and high school, and then I dated the same guy all through college, and then after college, he cheated on me, so we, kind of went our separate ways. And then I met a man who was very prominent in the community that I lived in a small mountain town, and um, he was very unhealthy, just as I was. I wasn't healthy at the time. I didn't have that relationship with the father. And so um, he was the one who raped me at gunpoint 5 times, on 5 separate different occasions. And then I became pregnant. And he, again, being very prominent, I shared this with you earlier in our conversation, that in the town that I lived in, after the first rape, I called the police. First of all, the police never showed up. And so I called a friend and they came and got me. But the next day I called them and asked them why they didn't show up. And they said, "You're out of our jurisdiction. You should have called the sheriff." I'm like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that when I called you?" So the next time I called the sheriff, but again, their hands were tied. He was again prominent. And the sheriff, after the fifth rape, told me, "We cannot protect you. You just need to buy a gun and kill him." And I said,
Wait, go, hold on. You're just going to have to buy a gun and kill him?
that was the only thing that they gave me to do. Because prosecuting him didn't work in this town, reporting him didn't work. And this was many years ago. So.
Right. Oh, I totally understand. So now, okay, let's go into the rape at gunpoint. Were you on a date? Like, what happened?
He broke actually into my home 5 separate times. I lived kind of outside of town, so kind of secluded in this mountain town. And so he broke in. I don't know, looking back, I think maybe he had a key made, because I never heard him break in, until his arms or his hands were around my throat and I was up against the wall, and then proceeded to rape me.
But Connie, so you were dating
Yes,
at one
we had
point?
dated. Actually, we dated like 4 times. We had gone out about 4 times, and I had said, this really isn't going to work out. That, you're not the person for me. And he did not accept that.
Okay. Was he older than you?
He was probably about 7 years older than me, so
Okay.
not terribly.
So you went out about 4 different times, and you'd made the decision that it wouldn't work out. And so what happened? You're just at home one night sleeping and he broke in?
Exactly. That is exactly what happened on every single occasion. I would sleep with mace in my room, in my car. But that, he was, I don't know, he was just very good. I'm pretty sound sleeper, unfortunately. My husband tells me today I'm out, in a blink. But yeah, so he just would break into my home on each of those occasions. So then after I purchased the gun, I started sleeping in my front room so I could hear him, and had the gun next to me. And actually it worked, because I had a window in my front door. And the next time that he tried to break in, I heard him then. And I just put the gun up by the window and said, "I have a gun and I'm going to kill you." And
All right.
he never broke in again.
God, this is just crazy. So how long was the time span from when the first time he broke in to the last time?
It was probably about 6 months in that
So you did
time.
not know during those 6 months time frame when he was going to come to your house at night and break in?
I did not. I just kept thinking it would go away. Uh, Maybe I cried a few brain cells when I was younger or something. But you just think you're going to be okay. And I was a pretty tough little girl. I'm like, I can do this. I'm fine. But there were many nights I thought maybe he might come, and I would spend the night with friends. But he was also a stalker. So after I told him I didn't want to see him anymore, and after the rapes, he then began to stalk me even more. And so I would go to dinner with friends in another town, even that was about 30 miles away, and come home. And the minute I would walk into my house, my phone would ring. He would tell me what I had to eat. He would tell me he would kill those people that I was with. One particular time, he called me from Denver. My family lived on the Front Range, actually, in a town there, and he had taken 2 family members, my mom and a younger brother, out to dinner, and called me and told me that if I did anything else to disrupt his life, he would kill them both as well. So he really, was pretty dark, evil person.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And he is a prominent person. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he actually worked for the government. So again, he was very well protected. And there, I kind of had my hands tied, and just then I went into that fight or flight mode, basically, with him, and tried not to. And then eventually what I did was I moved. I disrupted my life because I couldn't control, the stalking and all the threats that were happening to myself as well as my friends. I wasn't as scared probably as for myself as I was for family and friends at that time.
All right. So then he would break in, and was there like, hey, Bob, like, I mean, what would, I'm so sorry. I've got to know some more details. Like, was it a break-in, like a violent break-in, and then he would, throw you against or throw you on the bed? Like, what would, I don't want to go into too much detail because I know that's rough, but like, what would be the initial, like, hello? I mean, what would be the initial response?
Well, typically what would happen, my bedroom happened to be in the back of the house, and the front door was quite a ways away. And so I really think he might have had a key made, and that I didn't know about it because I wouldn't even hear him break in. And then I would be awakened by, typically with his hands around my throat while I was laying in bed. And, at one particular occasion, he had just picked me up by the neck and threw me against the wall, and then proceeded to rape me with the gun on the bed, and said, I'll kill you, those types of things. But each 5 times that happened to me, you'd think I'd learn. But again, you just, you go into this fog of a world, I think, sometimes when those things happen to you, and you think it's going to go away somehow, miraculously go away.
I mean, were you like, so how did he just walk out? Like, was there any words said? He would just leave like as fast as he came in?
No. Sometimes he would go out into my front room, and I would get dressed and go out there, because I would try to talk him away from my home. I would try to talk him down. Be nice, kind of, to save your life. And he was crazy. He would start hitting himself in the face, punching himself in the face, saying how sorry he was for what he had just done to me. And I'm just like, I hope he kills himself.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm thinking, maybe he'll wound himself enough that he won't do this again. But it was very dark and very evil.
So could you talk to anybody about it?
I had one married friend that I talked to about it. And they, their advice too was, gosh, come stay with us, which I did often. I would go and stay at their home, but I had my home. I didn't want this person to disrupt my life so tragically, or the people around me. I just wanted him to go away. I kept thinking he would go away. But again, eventually what I did was I moved out of that town to flee him.
Right. Well, you just say this so nonchalantly, like, oh, I just moved, because I've got more questions. So,
I
all
was
right.
angry that I had to move. I had a business, I had my life
Yeah.
there, I had friends,
Then did you move out of like 20 miles away or 50 miles away or a state away?
about 175 miles away, almost.
Oh,
I moved quite a ways away.
so now, why didn't he try? Like, was it just too far out of his jurisdiction? Like, where was it?
It was in the state of Colorado still, but yes, he did try again. But I moved in with my mom at that time. Actually, I moved into her basement. She had an apartment in her basement, and so he kind of had to go through there. But he did try just to come into my life again, only a couple times. And then he, praise God, was transferred to Washington, D.C. To work for the government there. And so
Yeah, but
he was a lot further away than.
well, that's kind of crazy, because if he's working for the government, he was working for us, the people. Oh my gosh. Okay.
No, okay.
So, all right. So now okay. How do you not live in complete panic and fear during that 6 months time, even like during the day? Like, I mean, how did you deal with that? That would be like a PTSD, something like that.
Without the Lord, I think I did suffer from some of that PTSD. I became very ill at that time. Just, I think, stuffing all of those things.
Yeah.
I became, allergic to the world. I went down to 72 pounds for years and years, and just
Wait,
couldn't.
how tall are you?
I'm only 5'4".
5'4"?
72 pounds was pretty, sick.
Okay, well, I'm 5'6" and I'm way past 72 pounds. You were very, very thin. Very.
I and I did a lot of doctoring to try and figure out what was going on with me too, and I did have some underlying health issues, but I believe, that first of all, I did get pregnant from him, and
Okay.
I terminated that child, and so I had an abortion, which caused more. It was actually harder for me to get over the abortion and my subsequent abortions than it was for me to get over the rape. But I did live in fear. I carried the gun with me all the time. I carried mace cans with me. I looked around my shoulder all the time. I lived in fear.
I tell you, only the Lord, you're such a calm person. You're just so like, and that is the presence of the Lord, literally,
Amen.
in you, all around you. I mean, gosh, just the fact that the anticipation of, is he coming tonight? When is he coming again? How did you find out you were pregnant?
I did a pregnancy test
So did you
at
feel
home.
something wasn't right, or how did you know to do that?
Well, my cycle had stopped. Um, and because I was pretty regular, my menstrual cycle was pretty regular and it stopped. So I bought an at-home test and did that, and then found out I was pregnant. I did call some people and ask their advice, and of course the advice that I got and the clinic that I went to said, we can solve your problem, and an abortion will solve your problem. Well, again, it took me longer to overcome the abortion than it did the rape and the rapes. But at the time, you're so numb. I was so fearful. I didn't want this person in my life anymore, but not knowing that I had options at the time. Nobody told me that I had other options, that, because he raped me and it was a product of that rape, that this person wasn't going to be in my life for the rest of my life if I carried this baby to term. I was just told, this will solve everything for you. You'll just terminate this child. Again, it adds 10 problems to your life. It doesn't solve the problem, because the baby's never the problem.
Absolutely. So did your parents know, or you just kept it with closer friends, or?
My mom knew, but mostly just my closest friends. And so
That had to be devastating for your mom.
yeah, going through what I went through too, she just went into protection mode as well, I believe. She wanted, although she didn't know for a long time what this man was really doing to me, because he threatened to kill her and my youngest brother. So I, for a long time, didn't tell her what was going on. And so when I did told her all of the things that were happening, she went into that mama mode and in protection as
Yeah.
well.
Now, and Connie, how old were you when this was happening?
I was about 20.
Oh my gosh, you're only 20 years old. Oh gosh, that just hurts my heart to hear this. Well, okay, so if you don't mind me asking, I know this is probably very, still, I'm sure that it still affects you, but what was it like literally driving to the abortion clinic? Like, did you have second thoughts? Were you like, I can't believe I'm doing this, or I've got to do this? Like, what was going through your mind?
At that first abortion, I was totally numb. And I see that on the women that I work with now, because I do work with women who find themselves in unplanned pregnancies. But I was just numb, and I just wanted this over with. I wanted him out of my life. And I thought, again, that this was the way to do this. Because if I carried this baby to term, I thought he would now be a part of my life forever. And so I was numb. I remember being sad, though. Um, I was pro-choice at the time in my life as well. So it was, and I was told it wasn't a baby. So it really wasn't as hard um, to make that choice, because you're thinking it's really not a baby yet. I was probably about 8 or 9 weeks pregnant. Looking back, I can't say for sure, because God has so healed my heart and
Yeah.
healed me from all that. It's almost like I talk about a different person.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. He's so faithful to just redeem us and heal our hearts. But yeah, I just wanted it taken care of, to get him out of my life, not the baby, but him.
Right, right. So that day, like literally on that table or wherever they did it, so there was no time of like a second thought of like, wait, I shouldn't be doing this, or like, did it hurt? Like, what happened that day?
Actually, my first abortion, I went into a hospital. I went to your regular OBGYNs, and we forget that those doctors are doing abortions every day, as well as your
I
abortion.
never thought about that.
So I went to my regular OB. I went into the hospital. I was put under. I do remember, though, before I was put under, they took me into the room, and it was so cold and so dark, and not to be too graphic, but I remember them putting my feet in the stirrups before they put me under, and thinking at that point that this is not going to go well. This is not right. Just remember, and then I was out in that first one.
Mm. And then when you came to, did your mom take you, or had,
Yeah, I had a friend take me, and then she brought me home to recuperate, because it's a medical procedure. It's surgery, and women, are told that it's like, having a cavity filled or something, but it's not. It's painful, because I've had 2 more abortions after that, and I'll share that a little bit. But that that one I was under, but the pain afterwards was still there. They are ripping something out of your body that is not natural. They're ripping a child out of your body. And so there is pain that's associated with that.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. All right. So what happened with the shame and the guilt? I mean, how did you deal with it, when after, you'd recovered and you were back to your normal life again?
So I didn't tell very many people about that, my abortion then, because of the shame and guilt. There's a place in your heart that knows it's wrong, no matter if you know the Lord or not, which I didn't at the time. And so that shame and guilt led me to then, I did start drinking a little bit more, partying a little bit more than I ever had in my life. I picked bad men, and that's typical of what I see in women now that I counsel and work with. Is we see an increased risk of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, promiscuity, making bad choices. And so that became my life as well. And I ended up with another really bad guy who was an alcoholic. And because now I had done the worst thing that I could ever do, so I don't deserve to have somebody good in my life. God had brought some really nice men in my life that I, looking back, went, they were really, really wonderful men, but I felt so horrible about myself that I would push them away. I sabotaged those relationships and gravitated towards those relationships that were so unhealthy for me and were not good.
Wow, that is so true. It's like we punish ourselves, and in doing that, we get with somebody that will treat us as bad as we feel on the inside.
Yeah.
Gosh. So now, okay, you said that there were more abortions down the road. So what happened? What was the next situation?
So that was with a gentleman that I dated. We lived together for a while. I became pregnant twice in that relationship and terminated both of those children as well. The last abortion, though, that I had, my third abortion, it was 2 weeks after I had given my life to Christ. So somebody invited me back to church, and they saw that my life was just a mess. And so I had probably the first time I was invited back, I actually got up and left. It was a night of prayer, and I thought, these people are crazy. They're like laying in the pews praying. Now that's me. And but they invited me back, and I came back again. My heart, I knew the Lord as a little girl, but I didn't have that intimate relationship with him. I'd met him, and I had seen how he had protected me throughout part of my life, in certain situations that I'd had. And so the second time I went in there, I gave my life to Christ. I went running forward and said, this is what I'm missing. This is what I need. And I will tell you, I fell madly and passionately in love with the Lord that day. And the very next day, I told the gentleman that I was living with that we couldn't sleep together anymore. We can't have sex. And then the following day I said, and you have to move out because I can't live with you and not have sex. So you have to go. And he did. And so then, but 2 weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant from him. And in my limited understanding of our Father and my religious mindset, I thought, if this church knows that I'm pregnant, they'll know that I've had sex and
Right.
that I was living with somebody outside of the marriage covenant, and they'll never let me come and meet with this Jesus that I fell in love with. So this is what I have to do. So I went and terminated that child. But that day, on that table, I do recall the Lord speaking to me, get up and go, get up and go. And I didn't. And that shame and guilt was pretty strong. And so continuing with some of my healthy behaviors, I guess, I don't know. I didn't continue drinking or anything like that and drugs, but I was so unhealthy inside that, I couldn't eat anything. Everything bothered me, a smell would make me sick. I couldn't smell perfumes or gasolines, or all of those things just made me violently ill. And so that was when, that 72 pounds, and that was part of my life as well. But the shame and the guilt of taking the life of my children was so overwhelming for me. And I thought this was like one of those sins that God could never forgive. And so I would go forward in church all the time, prayer for healing, because I was so sick. And people would always, and I confessed those things to the Lord, my abortions, and I confessed everything. But they would go, "What sin haven't you confessed? And, what sin are you committing?" And I'm like, "Well, right now I'm being pretty good." But, I would confess everything that I could think of, even though I didn't ever do it. And just to cover those bases, just in case, maybe that was the key. Because I knew that God's word said that by his stripes I am healed. He said that he took sicknesses away from us. And I would read that in the word. And then at the pulpit, they would be saying, well, this is part of God's plan. If you're sick, that's God teaching you a lesson. And I'm like, well, obviously I need to be taught a lesson, because look at all the horrible things that I've done. So I deserve this. I deserve to be sick, and I deserve to be ill and not living the life that God had planned for me because of committing those sins.
Wow, Connie, I also had the same kind of environmental allergies as well. So I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I couldn't be around perfume. I couldn't be around paint. I couldn't be around cleaning products. I mean, you name it, and I was allergic to it. So I totally understand that. Oh my gosh, bondage. Yeah. I mean, where can you go in this world that you're not allergic to? It was awful, but it was all emotional. Because I always say this to people, like, how'd you get over it? I'm like, there's no drug for it. There's no medication for it. So how did it go away? Jesus healed me. Like, you can't, there's no discrepancy here at all. Jesus healed me. That was the only way.
Amen.
Well, we are out of time, unfortunately. And, but we're going to come back for part 2, because the story goes on. The redemptive story of Connie Weiskopf goes on, and it's awesome and amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing the deep, dark secrets, that you shared with us today, because a lot of people don't want to go into those areas. But when God heals you, it's like, it's just a story about somebody else, and I really appreciate you really, digging deep in your heart and letting people know really what was going on inside of you during that time. So we will see you next time for part 2. Thank you so much, Connie.
Thank you, Julieann.
Wow, what a story. My gosh, what an amazing woman. That it's so great, because she's just so calm, and she just throws things out there, and you're like, wait, hold it. I want you to get every bit of this, because it's so good. And just the redemption part, the forgiveness that she even gave herself is so important for you to see, for all of us to see. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Part 2 is next week. You don't want to miss that. And please go to healingjourneystoday.com. You can help us to bring these shows to you every week. Matter of fact, all of the Healing Journeys Today teachings also come under that. So you can help us by donating today. That's healingjourneystoday.com. And thank you so much for sharing these stories and subscribing to this channel. We will see you next week on the journey.